welcome everyone. My name is Roy Bitus, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Samed Ahmed. And joining us today on this AFBE special talk is Fola Jimi, our special guest. Um, Fola, it is lovely to have you here.
It's great to be here, Roy.
Thank
Very
you.
glad. Thank you for
Thank,
having me.
thank you for coming. So, just a little bit of housekeeping rules. If there's any questions that you have to ask while the talk is going on, please post it in the chat group, and my co-host Simon will pick it up, and we will try and merge as many questions that have been asked that are similar, and we will try and get them across to Fola, and we will discuss as much as we can on the topic that has been the key for today's discussion. So we're here today to talk about the 5 mistakes that hold people of BAME origin from progressing in leadership positions. And it's a very interesting topic. I've had the privilege of having a chat with Fola before this. So I'm pretty sure all of you will enjoy today's talk. So as a quick introduction, Fola, let me just introduce you quickly. So Fola is a recently ex-director of operations and chief operating officer at Atkins Consultancy. And she was also former vice president of McKinsey. She also worked as a business improvement director at Shell and also a business transformation project director at Hitachi. She has been in the business in entrepreneurship space. She's a coach. She has coached a lot of women, and she's even about to start a program where she's coaching women as well, and has worked in over 13 countries and 4 continents. Jimmy, it's nice to have you.
It's great
Um,
to be here.
Now, let's jump straight into the talk because I want us to cover all 5 topics. I want us to be able to ask as many questions as possible, and I want us to get the most out of this today. So, um, 5 mistakes. Jimmy, over to you.
Thank you very much. So it's really great to be here. And I want to just, before I go on the first ones, I want to just kind of a really short preamble about my own journey to this point. So I literally like 2 days ago stepped down as the director of operations for one of the largest engineering and construction companies in Europe. And I was the most senior person of color in that company globally. And I wasn't an HR person, I wasn't diversity, I actually led operations. And having been a management consultant for the last 10 years, I've been consulting C-suite execs, CEOs in how they run their operations, how they become more efficient, how they deliver value. And I say this, so what I'm providing is my perspective as being a C-suite executive myself, but also sitting in the rooms with those C-suite executives for decades and helping them draft strategies and implement these things. And I've seen these issues over and over again with people of color, especially in the West, not showing up in a certain way and believing certain things, and I'm not going to judge you saying that you're right or wrong for believing them. I'm just going to basically just give you some data from what I have found and my own opinion. Please take it for what it's worth. So with these mistakes, I feel like I see them consistently. And even when I was in a C-suite, in my last couple of roles where I was C-suite and trying to get more diversity into some of the work I was doing, I struggled with getting the interest of the BAME community in a lot of the projects that we're running. And so this is what I want to share, because I feel a lot of these things may be happening in your space and you may not even realize that you may be doing them. So number one is that I think there is this belief that your progression in your career should be linear. So you go from apprentice to, I guess, junior engineer to engineer, senior engineer, principal engineer. And if you follow that process, you will eventually get to, I guess, global chairman. Or if you just keep on taking every promotion every year, every 2 years, every 5 years, it will get you to where you want to get to. And that is a myth. Why I feel it's a myth or a mistake or something to be careful about is, from my own experience, the fact that I got to the level I got to by the time I was 41, having taken gaps out of my career to start businesses. So I didn't work straight from university to become a COO. I actually stopped and took about 7 years out at different times to run my own projects. I still became a COO at 41. And I say this because there is no linear path to getting to where you want to get to. And the more that you can begin to think about what kind of risks you want to take, what kind of detours you want to take, where they're moving parallel and then taking a couple, and that will allow you to take a couple of steps ahead, understanding that simply doing your time, marking the calendar, doing your 5 years as an engineer and then 5 years as a senior engineer is not going to necessarily set you up to be it may get you to middle management by the time you retire, junior management by the time you retire, but breaking into senior management, you will run out of time if you simply follow that path, especially in the more engineering spaces. And why I say this is to be an excellent engineer takes decades. But excellent, and that may be what you want. If your desire really is to be a specialist engineer, then that probably is going to preclude you from actually executive leadership because they're a different skill set. And ultimately, they don't have the time for you to master engineering and take 35 years to really master this space and then start on the leadership space because you're just going to run out of runway. The second mistake I find a lot of...
Before we go into the second mistake, there are a few things that you've mentioned here that has kind of struck a nerve with me. You said running out of time. So if I'm an engineer, I'm working through the ranks, I get into a company as a graduate engineer, my goal is to someday be, in senior management or at least executive level. That path might not be linear for me.
If your desire is to be a senior executive, then it's not going to be linear because there is no way that you're going to be able to be the skills required to lead a division, the skills required to lead a company are very different. They're a very different skill set, almost a completely different skill set than being able to design a great bridge or to design, to project manage the integration of even 1,000 engineers. They're very different skill sets because you're looking at things like negotiation skills, commercial negotiation skills. Yeah. And those are very specific skill sets that as a standard engineer, without having exposure of the commercial function, you're not going to understand that. You're going to need to have some understanding and a real understanding that HR policy, HR laws. How are you going to run a redundancy program? Having that exposure, you're not going to get that simply showing up and submitting your specifications on time, or even mentoring one or two people to manage to get their specifications on time. And yes, you may even run a massive division as an engineering leader, but when you're going to executive leadership, it's about leading very diverse groups. So you're leading some engineers, some HR people, legal people, marketing and sales, and being able to have a view as a leader on all of those things. And the more senior you get, the more broad your view has to be able to integrate all of those, which is why when I was in Shell, for example, Shell had this practice of the people they identified for fast track, they took them out of engineering and put them into commercial. I think they put in a lot of their fast track people through human resources as well. So they actually take them out of the engineering track because they see your tap, you could be a good executive leader.
So that tells me that I need to acquire skills. How do I go about trying to acquire those skills? So because if I'm stuck in a job, so I'm just speaking hypothetically, if I'm stuck in a job, I'm trying to progress. I know that maybe I want to get to executive management level position. I might not be given that opportunity in my company.
Okay.
What do I do?
This comes up to some of my other points, but I'll go to my second point to try and answer that question. Okay. So another mistake a lot of us make is not believing we deserve to be in executive management, one, and not really being clear what we want. And I know this will change in time. If you're 21 years old, 22, that's okay. If you're in your 30s and 40s, it's it's now really getting crystal clear what it is you actually want, because you're gonna have to make some decisions. So for myself, being a director of operations, overseeing almost 4,000 people across the UK, overseeing 2,500 complex civil engineering projects with budgets of 50,000 to 150 million in my portfolio. I am not an engineer. My first degree is business. My second degree is business. If you ask me the difference between potential energy and kinetic energy, I really wouldn't tell you the difference. But I say this but what helped me was I actually pivoted a lot in my career to gather the experience. So I didn't wait for anyone to train me. So because I knew that I really wanted to progress as quickly as I could, I made the decision to leave, to go into management consultancy, and not engineering consultancy, but the more process, operational, strategy consulting that actually hires engineers and values engineers' competencies. Because then you are very quick. So I figured I'd be very quickly exposed to a lot of these things in a very short amount of time. And that was probably the biggest way I gained back time, was actually working in management consultants with a capital M, opposed to engineering consultancies, because that got me into working for engineering companies. I've worked exclusively for engineering companies, but a much more senior level, being part of those more senior organizations. So a bit of advice I would suggest is that, first taking that step back and being honest with yourself what you actually want. Many people here actually want to be specialist engineers. That is your desire, that is your drive. I still think the principles are similar, but you may not have to be as broad, but really understanding as much as you can about what's emerging in your space, in terms of thinking, in terms of technology, also in terms of managing and dealing with people. So if you're going to you want to be a principal, or what we say in oil and gas, a technical authority 1 or technical authority 0, your job may be 60% still your own technical work, but then 40% of a technical 0 in an oil and gas company, a technical authority, is still the mentoring, the leadership, the strategizing of that technical specialty. So you're still going to have to step into that people space and that organizational space and that process space if you want to really get to the top ends of even a technical.
Question I've got there for is, there'll be a lot of youngsters in this conversation just now who will want to know that they may have been guided throughout their time that you need to get to that management consultancy level or the executive level, you should have a strong basic understanding of all the engineering functions, or be able to then say that you've got competency. So you would get to a chartered level before you can then say, okay, I'm ready to switch. Would you have said that you moved roles? I know you said you've done a diverse variety of roles. Do you think those roles, the way in which you moved and the position that you got to be at a director level or a CEO, CFO level, do you think that's been the right level of progression that you've done? Or do you feel that you've missed out on opportunities? And do you feel that people may have said, okay, that individual's accelerated too quickly to the position she's got to, and she's missed out on the knowledge and breadth of knowledge that she may have needed to get to that point?
So I'll say this because I'm really pitching this to people who are probably more middle of their careers versus someone just coming out of university. So for those people taking university, keep this video, come and watch this in about 5 years' time. Because I do think there is something about understanding who you are and what you want, and that may take some time just to figure that out. I do think in terms of, there is something about understanding, getting the foundations right. I don't believe I accelerated very fast. If anything, especially when you're in the management consulting space, companies like McKinsey, where I've worked, you'll find that there are people there who are really dealing with very senior clients in their mid to late 20s. So it just comes down to really what it is you want. There's nothing wrong in saying, I want to take some time and be grounded in this, especially if that's what I want to do with my life. But there's so many other ways you can be grounded, especially the ability to pull very complex systems and complex ways of working together and synthesize what is actually going wrong and what that opportunity is. And that's a skill you only learn by being exposed to that level of complexity. Yeah. Whether you're exposed to that at 21 or 22 like I was, or you're exposed to that at 47. You have to have spent the time being exposed to that complexity.
So, sorry, I'll let you finish. Sorry, just jump.
So I think in terms of, I haven't really felt, I've ever felt that I should have spent 5 more years doing a job that I did. If anything, I really feel I should have pushed myself a little bit even harder. But I've my degree was business, so it was always about I like the variety. But I say this because that's a personal thing for me as well. I've also enjoyed that variety and being able to take what I've learned from one client and help another.
And apply.
But I do say that there isn't anything wrong in someone who decides really if what you want to do is to really be an uber specialist in your space, then just reconcile that with yourself, as soon as however soon you can, because then you're not torn within trying to get special projects or trying to move into a management consultancy role when actually what you really want to do is just be a really, really, really solid engineer.
Okay.
So I have a question here from Emma Uchechi. So she says, she starts with this conversation is very layered because in truth, a lot of skilled professional immigrants find that they need to play catch up in the linear track. So the appetite for risk in taking time away to acquire those skills isn't always going to be present, true? So the question then comes how to pivot at a certain age, always staying aware of the time you have to make up and still land on the target for your career track.
I think it still comes back to knowing what you want first, because I think there's some immigrants, and I came to the UK in my mid-20s. I actually started in consulting at 30. And in between that, I was homeless twice. So I had a very rocky start to my career. And still was able to catch up. So it's possible. I want to first tell you, Nkechi, it is possible. But now to be specific, I'll kind of go to my next mistake that may help answer that is, I think, expecting someone else to chart your path. Looking for a mentor to help you figure this out. And there's a lot of, from my standpoint, I have found that actually not very helpful, because a mentor will speak from their own experience. And if your mentor has been in place for 25 years and they are a team leader, they're not going to be able to help you figure out how you're going to get to where you want to get to. So I would definitely say that I think there may be a time you may decide you want to spend a couple of years getting the basics, but understand how much is actually needed for what you want to do. Again, I'm the COO of an engineering company. I do not even understand the software that's being used in engineering companies. But that's not my role. My role was much more around project, portfolio management, overall efficiencies, the bigger issues they're having across the organization. Yeah. So if that's, sorry?
No, keep going, sorry.
So it's really coming to understand what your strengths are. And it's difficult for a lot of people. And I struggle in this space, even as a consultancy. There are a lot of core skills as consultants everyone's expected to have. A lot of them I do have. I got my Six Sigma black belt quite early in my career. I'm a lean practitioner, my master's. A lot of that work, I got the necessary qualifications I needed for my own industry. And I don't want to discount the importance of doing that. But ultimately I had to decide when I was ready for the next level, and to know that I didn't have to be fully ready, because I would learn at that next level. If I got to a space where I felt I was kind of out of my depth, then yeah, I could hang back there for a season to get to a point I wanted to get to. But I never took on a space of needing to be 100% ready. And a few months ago, I was interviewing someone for a director role. So the director would be sitting below me. They'd be a senior director reporting into me. And it was quite interesting, the caliber of the candidates that came for this role. And there were very senior people, very seasoned executives, but they were not competent, but they showed up with all confidence like they could do the role. And they'd been doing very similar roles in other companies. But there were huge gaps in their understanding. And it was disappointing, because I think that there were people who, there are people who will probably have a lot more experience who just don't feel they're ready to step up. And so with that particular role, there was a vacuum of capability. And I actually had to persuade one of my colleagues to take the role. He was overqualified. He was more than qualified to do it, but I still had to go and persuade him because he didn't feel like he was ready to do it.
You've mentioned something about experience. So you interviewed people who were seasoned professionals or seasoned in their field, but they were not competent. How do you differentiate the two?
Your seasoned is how long you've been, right? 10, 20, 30 years. That's what I say is seasoned. When I say competent, we're now talking about specific problems I need them to help me solve. They really couldn't explain how they could solve those problems.
So I guess what you did was during the interview, you pitched a scenario, or you gave them a case study, or you gave them something, and you expected them to give you at least logical steps or professional logical steps on how to solve the issue. And as far as I'm concerned, you were not satisfied with the answers.
We in the panel weren't. But here's the interesting thing I want to say, though. So none of the people who applied for that role were BAME or women, none. And at least those guys who came into that got feedback about what they now need to go and be able to demonstrate for the next round or the next time they went into that kind of role again. So even that you didn't get it is a still learning opportunity for them at a much higher level versus hoping to get everything right before you now even start pitching for those roles. I think about a few years ago, when I used to drive, I would take my car into the MOT. And what my mechanic at the time said to me was, I'd take it to my mechanic first to get him to do the work to make sure it passed the MOT. And he said, no, actually what you should do is go and take it to get it MOT'd, let it fail the MOT, then we know why it's failed the MOT, then we'll fix it and then take it back, because that would be more affordable and more targeted. And if you think about those guys who are applying for roles, even though then they don't feel they're ready for those roles, they're getting very targeted feedback on what they need to work on. So they know what the next 2 years should cover, the next 5 months should cover, the next whatever should cover, versus waiting till you have every possible thing I could ever want before you even put your name for it.
So going back to your points, one of them, so expecting your mentor to chart your path for you. A question has been asked by Abby, and he says, what can I do as a mentor to empower my mentee not to make that mistake? So this is a senior mentor who will probably have to mentor, have a mentee or have a few mentees who will be in that position. How can he empower them so they don't make the same mistakes?
I mean, for me personally, I tell people I'm not your mentor. So, but I think it's asking the tough questions. I mean, really, do you want to do something else? I provide a lot of ideas, not because I need them to go and do them, but have you thought about this? Go and look at those roles. Encourage them to think more broadly, especially as BAME individuals, because getting them to volunteer for work, even if they don't think they're a good fit, even if they don't feel they're ready, especially if they don't feel they're ready, have them go for it anyway, because you're going to learn. I mean, a couple of things happen, especially if you're part of a big company and you're applying. One, you're going to learn a lot from the process of going and lobbying, networking. You're going to build your network simply by speaking to the hiring manager, applying for the role, getting that feedback, meeting the panel. You're going to broaden your network by simply doing that. You're going to learn more about what you need to work on. So when you now go into your performance discussions, your appraisals with your employer, with your team leader, you've got your own things you want to work on that are important to you. Also, it sends a message to your organization that you're someone who's looking for something different. And companies will recognize, teams will recognize, if they don't find something for you, you are going to leave.
So following on from that, this conversation about mentors, a belief I've had going through my career so far is that there's always been mentors who, you could have a career mentor, you could have someone who's going to specifically help you from a technical perspective, or someone from a business perspective, or even someone from operations. do you feel a mentor should have one mentor can cater to all, or do you feel that you should speak to people who have different skill sets that they can provide you at different points in your career? Because I know you can't track, a mentor shouldn't track your career, they should have input, but
I'm going to say yes, you can have one person that guides you with everything. B, you could have different people that can help you. And I'm going to go with my option, which was C, my reality. There was no one to really help me. And the ones that were trying to help me just were not where I wanted to go. They just had not seen it. And so they were all about being safe, protecting your job, staying small. And they didn't mean it, but they just didn't know where I wanted to get to. And I say this because for a person of color, for many of you, if you're going to stay in the corporate world, you're probably going to get to a space you're the one and only. So you're not going to really have someone who can understand what it's going to take for you to be the one and only for where you're going to. So you're going to have to kind of step into the space of really relying on kind of what you really want and maybe your dream being the most important thing that guides you, because you're going to run to people who are going to say, no, there's no racism here. We're post that, because they don't see it, they don't experience it. And so I would definitely say that if you don't have somebody who's men, that's no reason to stop you from really pursuing quickly. In some ways, it may even help you, because you won't even know where the boundaries are. Yeah. No one told me I could be a director of operations for a multinational without an engineering degree. Maybe if they told me, I wouldn't have applied for it.
Because that's the thing, a lot of people might not know what their next step's going to be, and it might be that by speak to someone who's got that experience, they may be able to say, actually, you've done it, I actually don't like what you're doing, and for that reason, that path, I'm now not going to take that path, and I don't really like you as a mentor. So it might help people work out their path a bit better by speaking to people with a bit more experience.
I think it could. I have found it's not been that helpful for me.
Fair enough.
And I say why it's not been helpful for me, and this goes back to me personally, because I know myself a bit more, has been getting discouraged. It takes some time to recover from even bad advice. So I think, maybe the word mentor be careful about the word mentor. I think having advisors, getting advice is absolutely brilliant. You must get advice, talk to people. Yes. And you'll learn from people's mistakes and going forward. But if you find that you may be in a space right now where you just want to just get on with it, or think audaciously big, then go for it. Not a crazy example. I mean, there could be someone in this space right now who knows they want to be prime minister one day.
Yeah.
And you just smirked, right? So maybe that's you, or you'd smirk at that person. And that can be so if it's you, I think that's amazing. But you just may not be able to tell that to anybody, because what they will say to you is just going to be so damaging. You may want to be the CEO of a company bigger than Facebook one day. That may be what is your plan. You tell that to someone who can't handle it. Depending on your own personality, you may not be in a space to be able to handle kind of backlash from that statement.
So can we produce, Sama, just a second, can we progress in, because I'm just conscious of time as well. Can we progress into, I think we have two more.
Okay, more. So yeah. I've done leaving you, I'm out of order now. I'm expecting somebody else. So I think that the other bit is what I call the Cinderella syndrome. And that's waiting to be recognized or asked. So waiting for someone to say, you've done this job for 5 years, here is your promotion. It happens. It does. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong against someone offering an opportunity. But for people in the BAME community, you really should be going out more and actually soliciting promotions and asking to be on special projects, asking for that next role, not waiting for someone to say that you're ready. Because what I have found from my own experience is that we're seen to be less ready just because we are minorities. And so when I've been in rooms talking about who we're going to promote to like senior director levels that work for me, we don't there are no big names in that fray, except for the names I'm bringing. And I bring those names in because I work with more diverse people. It's just not because I particularly have any favoritism, but the nature of how I worked, I tend to work with more diverse people. I've known Asians, Africans who are highly competent. So I don't have any kind of barrier like, oh, in their school in India, did they learn how to write 1 + 2? No, because that's not, I don't have to think, I don't have that kind of process, but people do have concerns about foreign educated people. Even if they were foreign educated people, even though they were born and educated in the UK. So I say this in a sense that you've got to, don't wait. And I think about it for myself, when I was at Amazon, for example, one of the role shifts that changed my trajectory was becoming a Six Sigma black belt for Amazon. And I did not have a sponsor or a mentor. And so and you had to pass the test to get onto that program. And my boss had made it clear she did not want me on that. Very clear. An English woman, she just didn't feel that was for me. I heard about the opportunity through the grapevine, through my network. I went to see the hiring manager. He told me, basically, I had to pass the test. That's the first step, and then they'll now have other conversations. My appraisals were fine, so I didn't have any kind of pending disciplinary issues. So I decided that I had to get every single question in that math test correct so that I could get onto that project, because that would change my profile and change my, that would give me more of what I wanted to do. Didn't know exactly what a Six Sigma person did at that time. And so I did. I studied and I took the exam and I passed the exam and I got every question correct. And so they had to select me for that role. But if I had waited until my manager had told me I was ready, I wouldn't. No, I mean, I overtook her in my career about 3 years later, significantly. So this was the person who was deciding to me what is ready. And I say this because when I even talk to people about their careers, I truly believe there are people who I'm mentoring that are going to be billionaires, and I'm going to have to one day go and, I may have to one day go and get work from or go and engage with, because it's not a linear, it's not like school where the person behind you stays behind you. It really comes down to how you see the world. So I say this in terms of not waiting. So you may not have a boss who believes in you. You may have a boss who's saying they feel that, this path may not be for you. You don't have to stay in that company. You don't have to stay in that division. You definitely don't want to have a leader who does not believe in you. And it's not your job to try and convince them to think that you're good. There are people out there who are looking for someone like you, whether in your company or somewhere else, who believe in you who when you walk in, they'll believe in you from when you walk in. And you don't have to try and convince someone who doesn't.
Question I've got, Jimmy, there. Sorry, Roy. Listening to you now is quite inspirational. A lot of confidence is coming from you. It's great to see that. But for some people out there, it's not natural, this being able to, challenge the norm or going against people who are in more authoritative roles. What sort of tips or guidance would you give them to those who it doesn't come naturally to? It's.
I have 25 years experience. Right? I have a voice now, and part of my desire for my work is to help people who are stuck in this space. I think take it a day at a time. I think spend time with your community, people who know you're great, friends, shoot, your parents if they think you're amazing, and that's create an echo chamber. I hate this. I use that word very deliberately, of people who are going to remind you who you are, because those conversations about, for example, my Six Sigma example, Amazon, that was not a confrontational argument. I didn't go and argue. I didn't go and yell. I just went politely, very meekly. Hey, Mark, hi, do you have like a second? Yeah, this Six Sigma thing. I was thinking about applying for it. What do you think? That was it. It wasn't a big conversation, a big confrontation. I just went and asked. So a smile, a cup of coffee can go a long way in terms of asking for what you want. You see your CEO having lunch by himself. He probably won't let you join you, but you can say, hi, good morning. You just want to say good morning. And I'm not going to disturb you, but anyway, just say good morning. He may offer and let you have coffee with him. And they can say and people can say whatever they can say, like, yeah, you're trying to kiss up or you're trying to do whatever. They're human beings. They do want to make a connection. So I would say, I would go with gentleness. I would definitely make an effort to even just say hello to everybody in your building. When we're now able to physically meet everybody, or when you just make a point of just saying hello to people and saying good morning and just starting with that. And not everyone's going to be for you. It's not about trying to convince the whole world to like you, because that's also a very dangerous space. But it's that one person in the restroom or the elevator or on the train station that you recognize from work could be the person that could help you with something in the future.
This is very interesting. One thing I'm also getting from this is the ability to network and believe in yourself. I think it's very vital, and it's very important, because if you don't believe in yourself, then that comes the Cinderella syndrome, where you're waiting to be picked or you're waiting to be recognized. And this boils back to your first point, which is know yourself, know what you want for yourself, which is very important. And I think we should all take cue from it. I know I've certainly taken cue from it. If we can proceed to the, I think we have 2 more to go.
One more. So the final one is and this is my favorite one. This is a mistake, is believing that your work will speak for you. That it's just enough to do good work. Doing good work is like coming to work with clothes on. Doing great, and for a BAME person, and the women especially, doing great work is like coming to work with your clothes on, right? It is the minimum requirement. If you don't do fantastic work as a BAME, and especially as a woman, then you might as well come to work without any pants on, because then there'll be a problem. But you're not going to get any accolades, any kind of recognition for simply doing 110%. It's like, no. Even if your colleagues are doing 35%, it is not enough. So forget that they're doing 2%. Forget that, whatever, this other person who's from another, who's not BAME and who's not from our communities is doing 2% and coming to work hungover. That's not how you're being compared. You have to do great work, but that is not enough. And I really want that clear. So I'm not saying you should go and skip out or cut corners, but you've got to now think about, are you doing the right kinds of work? The right kind. So this now comes back to going, what's your plan? So if you know that I want to be the head, I want to be the most senior instrumentation engineer in my company. First of all, do you need to be the most senior instrumentation engineer in your company, or just any company? That gives you a lot more options. Must it be instrumentation? Could it be integrity investigations? So thinking broadly about that sense, but recognizing that you're going to have to advocate for yourself. You're going to have to ask for those promotions. And those are difficult because they still say no to us more. So just because you're asking doesn't mean they're going to say yes. And what I have found actually has worked for me has been actually getting a different job. Because one, that does give you, either you can come back and negotiate with, I'm actually leaving and I have an offer for this more senior role, for this better income, or actually you just go and promote yourself, create your own promotion by going to work for another employer. And that gives you the benefit of gathering a wider breadth of experience. But if you're waiting that, no, if I just keep on hitting and getting an excellent appraisal, a meets expectation appraisal, what's required for you to be excellent? It could actually be you just have a boss who will never get behind you being excellent. What it requires for you to be excellent is for a leader who will go into that room and say you're excellent. That's what it is. And I've been I've been in conversations where they have thought somebody wasn't performing well, and then I'm like, oh no, I think she's fantastic. I think she's like, she's a leader for tomorrow. And they're like, yes, true, yes, leader for tomorrow. And those conversations are really based on reputation. So I say this because this goes back to, really not trying to persuade someone who doesn't like you to like you. I have had some of my most challenging appraisal was where, except for in a role where my boss told me she should have hired a white man to do my job to my face, and was backed up for saying that. And in public, I got into a role where we delivered in 6 months, a 15-month project. I came in 6 months to the end. It was 9 months behind. We got the project done in 6 months on time. We sold an additional piece of work that was over $2 million. And it was the largest single sale made in Europe by my company. And I led that sale. I mean, it was me with the client. I didn't have a team. We got that on sale from me and through conversations, to the point I sat with the client where they actually requested the proposal from my team, from my sales team. And so even with that, my manager gave me an appraisal of 1/9, 9 being excellent, 1 not being good. And the manager who gave me 1/9 was the supervising vice president of that project. So he was the person through the entire 18 months that let it run, that oversaw the project manager, that let it get to that point. I came in, resurrected that project, saved his job, brought in more revenue from an on-sale than anybody else in Europe, and I still got a poor appraisal. And I say this because understand that it's really not enough to do excellent work if you're not being able to manage your relationships, and if you're in a bad place. Not every place you're going to thrive. Do make the assessment. If this is a place you know you cannot thrive, cut and run. And one of the things I have found really great about management consulting, and I say this because that has been a massive help for me, is that you generally don't deal with toxic clients. Generally treat you better because you're a management consultant. You're coming in for a short amount of time with a lot of credibility because the consulting team has had to sell you, but also you're not there for a very long time. So if they're not a nice place, you can definitely move and work somewhere else. Consultancy. So I think that's just for me, but it could be that you can find space in your own company if it's large enough. If there's enough variety in the kind of work that you do, you could probably find a division in a different country, perhaps. And I would definitely encourage that. You guys are working in the UK. You have experience that's respected globally. If you've got a chance to go and work for your company or another multinational or even a respected regional company in that region, they're going to respect your UK experience. So see how you can leverage that to get what it is you ultimately want.
Very thought-provoking. Now, I'm going to take us back to the start of this talk. When you introduced yourself, you said you took a 7-year gap, or you took at least a significant amount of time away from work. Now, there are a lot of people, engineering women, who have either had to take time off work, to take care of the home front, and things like that. And coming back into the job market, they're struggling. They're finding it difficult. I personally know of a few of them who have been through such situations and are now trying to get back into the industry. What would be your advice for them? Like, how did you get past that stage and succeed?
So you guys may know I'm doing a workshop next week that's called From Corporate Bondage to Freedom. And it's targeted for corporate women who want to leave the corporate world and start their own business. And I say this because I find a lot of women get to that point, especially women, where they realize that there is no refuge in the corporate world. And so one option is good. I would be amiss if I didn't say it, that doing something on your own terms in a sensible way can replace your income and give you a lot more flexibility. And But I want to be full disclosure, I believe in that. That's why I keep going back to doing things on my own. What I would say is that for someone going back into the corporate world, one of the things I have found, if you've been away, is the narrative that you say about yourself. And I'll give a quick example about one of my very first appraisals when I worked in the West. And I thought, for an appraisal, I need to get feedback from everybody on how I did. So I want to give balanced feedback. So I'm going to go to people who like me, people who don't like me, people who are kind of meh about me, and just gather all their feedback and put together a balanced appraisal, take it to my boss, and then we can see where I need to improve. And if anyone's laughing, you can go ahead and laugh about that, because I went there from a place of I really wanted to do better. What appraisals are, I realize now, is that no, it's everybody showing their best selves. It's not about balanced. So if my balanced view, they would think that's the best she could do. Those are the people who think she's the best. That guy who really hates her is her number one advocate. Wow, she must really be in trouble. So it's that orientation, understanding what people are looking at when you're presenting yourself back into the workplace, especially having taken time off with kids. So thinking about how you're even framing your resume and the kinds of companies you're targeting and how you're using LinkedIn. So I would definitely say, first thing, you're going to have to invest in some money to get your LinkedIn profile making sense by people who make LinkedIn profiles make sense. Why I say this is that I have paid 4 figures, and I probably will pay, if I ever went back to the corporate world, I'd probably be paying close to 5. Is that close? Yeah. To get my CV and my LinkedIn profile on point. I say that because for the kinds of roles I'm going for, those CVs are being done. So a gentleman from Eton, Alistair from Eton, is getting his resume written, his LinkedIn profile optimized at that level. You've had 5 years gap from work, and you're trying to compete with Alistair, but Alistair also went to Eton, right? So we're just saying we're not gonna play at that level. No, we're just gonna do my CV, have my aunt Fola look at it in between her baking business, and then spell check, and then we're going to try and compete against, Director of Operations Fola, who has like an army of people looking at her resume. So I think there's something about that. Thinking about framing, I think for women being really clear, women or anybody else really who's taking a break, who has unexpected gaps in their resume, about, again, what it is you want. And taking away the confusion from your resume about the kind of role you're looking for, because a confused mind says no. And knowing that your resume, if you're sending resumes through, it's going to go to like a 23-year-old lovely HR assistant who's just going to sift that CV. Nothing against her personally or him personally, but you need to make it easy for that person to see you're the right person. So thinking about the time you've spent so one thing I would definitely suggest, if you're a stay-at-home, if you're planning to be a stay-at-home mom, or you are a stay-at-home mom, or you've been a stay-at-home mom, you've probably been giving some sort of advice on something. So start a consultancy. Even if you have 2 or 3 clients that don't pay you very much, begin to gather the work you're doing for free, but getting that as part of your portfolio, because it still matters. But we see it as nothing because it comes so easily. It comes easily to you because it comes easily to you because you are amazing. That's why it's easy for you, not because it's easy for everybody else. And because you're giving it away because you're on maternity leave, that's fine. Make sure you're capturing that in terms of what you're doing now as your own consultancy, because in essence, you are a consultancy. So for those who are in it or about to go into it, I would definitely say take that approach to a maternity leave process and treat it that way. I would definitely say, but then when coming out of it, but even if you have that gap, really know that you are strong. And with LinkedIn, it's going to come back to the dirty networking word. And honestly speaking, I'm going to be open. Networking is not an easy thing for me either. but begin reaching out to people on LinkedIn, talking to people, having virtual coffees while you're on maternity leave with the kinds of employers you want to go and work with. So keeping one foot in the keeping one foot in the employment world, just in terms of reaching out to people. Go meet with your old boss if you can. Have coffee with him, or with her. Keep those relationships going through your maternity leave, so they know that you are coming, that you want to come back. Final thing I would say is, and this maybe goes to those who are not maternity, because you're going on maternity leave, go and give everything into your job. Push 100%, as much as you, whatever 100% means to you, right? But show up, do the things you want to do. Go take that project in Azerbaijan, even though you're going to be pregnant, because chances are they're going to want you to come back to Azerbaijan but also you're going to be, you'll progress more, you'll do more of the work you love, and it's going to be easier to come back and really fight for the job you want to get back. If you've been taking steps back, okay, I didn't go to Azerbaijan because I might get pregnant. Okay, I didn't get pregnant that year, but I turned down the job in Manchester because I might get pregnant. And so you've turned down 2 promotions and someone else took them. So the time you're going maternity leave, maybe Fola or Ade is 2 levels above you. You're now away for 3 years. You come back there like 7 level. It becomes harder to really try and drive for it. But doing interesting things like the Azerbaijan thing, the fact you're in Azerbaijan 3 or 4 years, people are still going to be interested about what you did there, especially if they still can't place people to go and work there. I'm not saying you should go back out there, but really just go, I would say go all out. Even if you know in 6 months you're going to be pregnant, go all out.
Thank you for that advice. I think we need to start summarizing. So you've mentioned a lot here, and there's a lot of take home. And for people who have asked what's going to happen to the video, we're going to upload it onto YouTube. So in the next 2 weeks, the video will be available on the AFBE YouTube channel. So if you're not subscribed to the AFBE YouTube channel, please do subscribe. So Fola, I think we need to put everything now into summary, and that's looking at the 5 mistakes. For me, my understanding is you've mentioned, believing that your progression should be linear. So first of all, our progression is not linear. We have a lot on our path. We have a lot to consider. We, first of all, have to know where we want to be in life, or where we want to be in our careers. And that will help to shape or forge where we're going to. And the issue of a mentor, and speaking about mentorship, just for your information, everyone, the AFBE UK has launched a mentorship program. So if you're not aware, this is an opportunity. So if you're looking for a mentor and want to be part of that program, please subscribe onto AFBE UK and the mentorship program. Send emails to the help section, and we'll be able to get in touch with you. If you're looking for a mentor, the requirements that you would need to fill in the form so that we know who you are and know what you want to achieve, and we'll be able to match you up to a mentor. So that's just for information. Now, I've been in situations where mentors, I think you can outgrow a mentor. I certainly believe that, because I've come to realize that I've had 1 or 2, 3 mentors, and I've realized that it's either the mentor might be very skilled in business, might be very seasoned, might be a good professional, but doesn't see things from the point of view of a BAME person, because they're 2 different things. So it's different if you're a white male, mid-40s, 50s, and you're going out to speak to people for business, than if you're a black man, in your 30s, going out to speak to people as well. The perception is totally different. There's an issue of, first of all, do they trust you? So there's always that hesitation when they approach you. After a while, they now get to open up and understand you, so it's very important. Now, I would like you to just sum up into, what would your final advice be, what would you have advised your younger self? So you've gone through all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Would you do it again? Or you've learned, what would be your advice to your younger self?
So would I do it again? Yes. Everything I have gone through has brought me to where I am. So my advice, 3 things. 1, you need to be radically honest about who you are. 2, radically honest about what you want. Don't give a darn what anyone else thinks. And 3, relentless about what you will do and what you will not do to get it. Those are the 3 things. You can find a way that is authentic and true to you to get what you want. But if you don't know who you are, if you don't know that you are amazing, if you don't know that you are destined for something great. I worked in a call center in between homelessnesses. And I was the most educated person in that entire building. And I knew even then I was answering calls that I was destined for something great. You need to know who you are, what you want, and be unapologetic about what you're prepared to do or not do to get it.
Important. Samad, anything from you?
Yeah, the question I've got, you spoke about just, being driven enough to go after things, but a lot of people, and me included, the misconception could be that in order to get from the stage that we're at, even to get to executive level, a lot of people might think you need to do an MBA, you need to do courses online, you need to actually go physically into classroom-led, instructor-led courses. But how do people just bridge that gap? And do you have to take those expensive courses or brush up your CV to potentially 4 digits in order to get that promotion or get that next stage? Is there any sort of advice you would give?
So I think it comes back to the 3 things. So what do you want? So if you are someone who your background is in engineering and your work has been engineering, an MBA is a great way to bridge from being a technical person into a more broader set. The great thing is you'll meet, you don't have to go to London Business School or to Oxford or Harvard. If you want to, then, but understand, if you really want to go, I want to actually encourage some people, really think about London Business School, Oxford, and Cambridge, because it will open so many more doors for you with that MBA. You don't have to worry about the other stuff. If you can do that, you know what? And some people here may never have seriously considered it. So I want to give you permission. Consider it. You don't have to even go, but just seriously consider it and see what other options come your way for just considering something you've never considered before. Who's to say something else better may come? I think there's that bit. I think there is definitely, I'm a believer in education and improving. I'm a lifelong learner. So I'm going to be a massive advocate. You're going to have to try and get the knowledge somewhere if you're looking to leave something you've done and do something else. And even though I'm, again, I've done business several times, I've done lots of business courses, I'm still looking for my next courses. I'm investing a lot in training. I've invested 2020, I have a budget of almost, I won't be too crazy, but a lot in my own personal development. But I believe I will be investing in that forever because I know I will never have all the knowledge. And there are people coming, younger people with new knowledge and new ideas I want to be able to tap into because I know I want to work till I'm 90. I want to be wheeled out of my office, my corpse rolled out of my office. So I need to get my skills ahead. So I think there's nothing in that. Not all the training has to be expensive. Some of it may be, but it comes down to really, if this is what you want, then go for it. And you're going to have to take some risks. And an MBA is a risk. But if you don't take any risks, that means you want the linear path of doing it. So example, the risk may be an MBA at Oxford or even the University of Birmingham or Kingston University. The risk may be going to Kenya to take on that division leadership role because nobody else wants to go there. That may be the different ways that could resurface, but you've got to look for something that that's going to give you that learning, whether it's going to be a role like, so if you took the division role, let's say I'm going to say Nigeria, because I'm Nigerian, and Nobody wants to go to Nigeria. So you take the role to be in the coal mine in Castina and run that for the mining company. You're going to have direct line of access to the MD, probably to your CEO, because he knows he needs you there. And nobody else wants to go to Castina to do that mining. And so then you'll get learning because you have a CEO on the phone try and encourage you and help you be successful because they need you there. So there are just different ways. Be creative, but volunteer. Put your hand up. You can always. You can. You can always. You can put your hand up and make the inquiry. You don't have to commit by making an inquiry, but begin to ask and explore different avenues.
Thank you very much. I wish we had more time with you, Fola, Jimi, but I can tell you that this will not be your last time with us at AFBE and the leadership program. You will definitely be involved. Thank you very much. For those of you who would be interested in joining Fola Jimi's program, which starts in exactly, I think, 3 or 4 days, is it?
Yeah.
On the 7th, it starts on the 7th of November. If you want to register, if you're interested, it's I think 1 hour or 40 minutes to 1 hour slots for 5 days. You can go to freedomwithfola.com and you can register your interest there. I have certainly registered my interest there, so I'll definitely be there because I want more. You know, I want to get more of this inspirational thoughts that will push me to achieve what I need to achieve in my life. Now, thank you everyone for joining. Fola, thank you for your insight. I wish we had more time. There's certainly much more to be said. There's certainly a lot more to be said about your career and how you've actually progressed. There are a lot of stories that Fola has, but for the sake of time, you know, we can't actually discuss them here, and that's not the theme of this particular talk. But I'm certainly going to be inviting you, and we're going to have probably another session at some other time in the year 2021 or 2022, if time permits you. For those of us who don't know, we are AFBE UK. We're based in London and in Scotland, in the UK and in Scotland, and we run various programs like this. Please, if you're not aware, just go onto AFBE UK and AFBE Scotland UK websites for more information. With regards to this video, it will be made available in the next 1 to 2 weeks on YouTube. So please just subscribe on the YouTube channel and click the like button and also subscribe so that when we upload videos, you will be the first to see them. And for all the other leadership programs that we've had, they're also on YouTube, I think, except for one, and this was due to privacy issues. So thank you everyone for joining this wonderful talk. Thank you, Samad, my co-host, and to everyone who's contributed. A lot of conversations have gone back and forth. I wish we could cover them all, but you know, due to time, we haven't been able to cover them. Please reach out to us if there's any questions you have. Please reach out to us, and also don't forget to subscribe for Jimi's event as well. So without further ado, I'd like to say thank you to everyone for joining this talk, and we will catch you next year when the leadership program returns after the holidays. So I wish everyone a lovely Christmas and a prosperous new year, a more prosperous new year than 2020. So thank you, everyone.